Alright, I just want to be upfront. I'm not going to tell you to fix your environment or use the Pomodoro method or any of those more common procrastination techniques. Instead, I'm going to be focusing on distractions and ways to deal with them. So the time that you would use these tips is when you are doing medium to low priority work and not really able to, or just not even want to get into a full flow state. And so if you ever find yourself struggling to focus because of your phone or a scattered brain, whatever it might be, these tips are for you. Sometimes we get a notification while we're working or on a break that we just have to check out. Maybe it's a text from a friend about a new album or a snap about what they're cooking. It's totally fine to check it out and respond to it, but we have to be careful to stop right after that. You can't afford to get sucked into that app. And for me, one of the best ways to stop that is talking to myself. So essentially just saying what I'm doing while I'm doing it. And I know it sounds a little weird, but let's say you get a text on Instagram. It happens all the time. You respond to the message and then you go look at some stories and then the explore page, and before you know it, your 5-minute break has gone on for 20. So how do we stop this? Just say, I'm only gonna respond to Michelle while you open the notification and are checking it out. The idea here is that you're keeping the purpose for opening the app at the top of your mind, because generally the reason we get sucked in is because once we do what we open the app to do, there's a second where either ingrained habits or the design of the app make it so much easier to just keep scrolling. So by saying this reason out loud, we kind of force ourselves to only do what we want to do and not what the app wants us to do. Tip number 2 is a distraction list. So this is for when you're working and really starting to get into it, but then all of these peripheral thoughts start to emerge, like, what am I going to do for lunch? Why do pandas lace around? I really messed up that presentation yesterday. So on and so forth. The issue with these is that when you give in to them and start to think about them or research them, you can really derail that productive train that you've just started to get going. And that's where a distraction list comes in. It's essentially just a place to write down any of these thoughts that pop up, right? It can take any shape that you want. It can be a sticky note, a notepad, something on your laptop, whatever the case. I would recommend against keeping it on your phone though, just because that's an unnecessary invitation for a potential distraction. And basically all you do is whenever you find these fringe thoughts start to pop up, just jot them down and get on with your work with the promise that you can always return to them later. Now this kind of has a parallel to something in meditation, where essentially whenever you notice a thought start to emerge, you shift your focus to it, you acknowledge it, and then you move on, and then you refocus onto your breath or whatever point of focus that you have. And this is great because your brain doesn't have to dwell on them, right? Because it knows that they're stored somewhere else and you can always go back to them once you're done with your task at hand. And the other benefit, honestly, is that however important these thoughts seem in the moment, they really aren't that relevant in the end. So a lot of the times I find myself not even going through two out of all those thoughts I have on my distraction list, just because I don't care about them anymore. They're just a very momentary lapse. Okay, so I know I said I'd give you some uncommon techniques to keep these distractions at bay, but sometimes when you find yourself just so engrossed in your phone, your book, pick your poison. The only thing you can do really is to chuck it and move on. Okay, by all means, do it gently. But seriously, when it's my 5th time I'm on my phone in 20 minutes, the only way I can make real progress is by getting rid of it. And also this way, where you at least give yourself a chance to stay focused despite the allure of a distraction, rather than just keeping it out of the environment from the beginning, you give yourself a chance to build and practice that discipline muscle. How often do you find yourself reaching for your phone for no other reason than you just don't want to focus on what you're doing right now? It happens to me all the time, and the best way I found to refocus is to just take a breath. There's actually this app called OneSec that I found recently that basically puts a screen on your phone which forces you to wait for a breath to decide if you really want to open a distracting app or not. But even outside of this, when you catch yourself with an impulse to, go on Twitter, you can always just close your eyes and take a breath to really confirm whether you really want to enter it or not. And I think closing your eyes is a really big part of it because it removes that external stimuli so you can make a more rational decision. But in the end, it's really just about being intentional with how you're using your computer and your phone and taking control of that. Sometimes distractions are just bad habits. If you find yourself consistently reaching for your phone every time your work gets too difficult or too boring, it likely means that you've developed a habit of using your phone to relieve your stress. So how can we break that, right? Well, humans love the path of least resistance. So what if we just made something else easier to do? Sticking with the phone example, say that you put your phone a little further back and a book that you want to read in front of it. You'll always see the book before the phone and you can reach for this instead. It's still not as good as figuring out the deeper reason for that disinterest and fixing that, but it is better than getting lost on your phone. Also, with something like a book, which isn't as stimulating as, say, TikTok, you might find yourself getting back to work faster than you did before. Distractions are inevitable, but just like with anything else in life, it's not about what happens to you that matters, but how you react to it. And I hope that these tips help you react better. Let me know what you thought of them in the comments below, and if you like this video and these kind of topics, subscribe, share, like, you know the drill, and see you in the next one. Thanks.